Hello and welcome to Talk HR UK. I think this is season 2, episode 4 from Alexander Lloyd, those lovely HR recruitment people. Once again, pre-podcast, I'm walking in the lovely Sussex countryside. I say lovely, I'm walking towards a very, very suspicious looking black cloud. So by the time you finish this podcast, Vespa, my dog and I may well be soaked. We haven't come prepared for the elements, so please do have sympathy. Anyway, this is a first in episode 4. We have 2 guests. So today I'll be talking to Tom Holmwood, the Recruiting and Resourcing Manager, and Sophie Thornton, the Recruitment Operations Manager, both from Surrey County Council. Now, I met Tom, I think Tom was the last person I met before the first lockdown, so very early 2019. We were working with Tom on quite a niche, tricky HR role that they needed working on, which did come to a positive conclusion. And during that time, what I was very impressed by, and the more I got to see of Surrey County Council, was how strong their employer brand was, perhaps stronger than I would have expected for a public sector organisation, and how much work they were doing to attract people to the council. So I kind of bullied Tom into giving up his time and talking to us today, and really just wanted to give them a chance to share how they coped with distributed working, how they kind of thrived and pushed forward the continuous improvement agenda. And all manner of things popped up. You know, we saw a new website that was launched, we saw an improved employer brand, also some really interesting projects. They had to set up the NHS testing centre, do the recruitment for that, which is clearly an unprecedented thing, which was turned around in a very short time. So lots of successes to share. Anyway, enough rambling from me. I'm going to let you get on and listen, and I'll catch up with you at the other end of the podcast. I hope you enjoy. Morning, everyone. Welcome to Talk HR UK. I'm Simon Geere, and when I'm not helping HR professionals find new roles in Surrey, Sussex, Kent and London, I'm enjoying myself on this podcast. And today I'm talking to Tom Holmwood and Sophie Thornton. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
A bright and sunny morning. It's very early for me, so forgive the bleary-eyed look. But I wanted to sort of create this podcast today with Tom and Sophie as a result of a piece of work we did last year. So I was working with Tom at Surrey County Council on quite a challenging HR opportunity. It was quite technical and niche. And what became obvious during that time, we did get a successful outcome, by the way, I should point out, but was how fantastic Surrey County Council were with their employer branding. There was perhaps more than I expected in terms of the employer branding, how they were approaching market, the look and feel of their general careers approach that kind of led us to this place. And we thought it would be great to talk to Tom and Sophie today about really what they've been doing over the last year. So I guess, first of all, introductions, guys. Sophie, first of all, tell us a little bit more about your role at Surrey County Council.
Yeah, sure. So my official job title is Recruitment Operations Manager. So what that really entails is looking after the advertising for the council when it comes to job vacancies. So we work really, really closely with our hiring managers on lots of different roles. So there's a real good challenge for us there, trying to sort of identify, you know, whether it's a recruitment challenge around national skills gaps, or whether it's, you know, looking at quality versus quantity. And I say I manage my team. They don't need managing. They're fantastic. But I work alongside them to do all of that, but then additionally to look at things like employer branding and putting Surrey as an employer of choice. So yeah, really varied role, which I enjoy.
Excellent. Thank you. And as you say, so the diversity of the roles at Surrey County Council, any local government provider, is immense, isn't it? So it must be a broad challenge.
Yeah,
and
it's busy.
Definitely. And Tom, so rather awkwardly, I guess you're Sophie's boss.
Yeah, technically, although much like her team, she needs very, very little management. Yes, I'm the recruitment manager for Surrey County Council. I've been here near on 13 years, would you believe?
Impressive.
And just a quick whistle-stop tour of sort of what our team does. As we support hiring managers in the organisation recruit, safely and efficiently. As Sophie rightly points out, she takes charge of the advertising arm of the offer to hiring managers, and then we've got another team that supports with regards to the admin function in terms of processing successful candidates. Just some quick stats. We process in excess of 2,500 people per year in a multitude, diverse and a variety of roles, everything from cleaner or caterer in a school all the way up to strategic director and everything in between and in the middle. So yes, it's certainly a team that keeps us on our toes, or certainly a customer base that keeps us on our toes with regards to having to stay at the forefront of best practice, emerging trends, and staying on top of what the market's doing so that we can best advise and make use of our advertising and marketing, and as Sophie says, making sure we attract the right people.
Excellent, thank you. So obviously last year, I mean, it feels like 10 years ago now, but last year everyone went through an awful lot. We had to change how we worked. I guess going to you first of all, Tom, I mean, you obviously had to switch to a remote working model, a distributed working model as a TA function. How, whilst maintaining service levels and keeping, filling the roles effectively and putting forward Surrey as even more so as a key place. I mean, you need to fill those roles in a difficult time. How did you change your talent acquisition processes during that period, first of all?
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, it was a bit of a shock to the system. I think we can be honest in saying that we, 1 week we were working, pretty much 5 days a week in the office, and then the next week we were all suddenly sitting in our, some of us were sitting on the end of our beds, some of us in our lounges, some of us on our balconies, wherever we could find space. At home, and it was a bit of a shock, but I think the key thing for us was that first of all, I mean, technology. There are three key things: technology, process, and people. The key thing was, first and foremost, was making sure everyone had the right kit to be able to continue communicating and doing their job. Now, we were particularly fortunate in our team in that 99% of people already had a laptop, which was bloody helpful. I think we're allowed to say that. And what we then did is we had a handful of people who didn't have mobile phones. So what we did was we quickly sourced through our central teams mobile phones for everyone, so that we could get everyone up and running with regards to being in contact and having the equipment at their disposal to be able to do it. So tech was the first thing that we sorted out, and we were very fortunate that we had a brilliant IT team who were able to do that very, very quickly within the first week. So by the end of the first week, we had what we needed to be able to do the job. The next stage really was to quickly change our processes. We were fortunate in a way that we were already moving towards quite a paperless based process for recruitment. And what this did is it gave us a mandate to very, very quickly change the last parts of the process to make them paperless. So again, quickly changing our processes, providing structure for people. That was probably the biggest thing we had to do as managers straight away, which was providing a structure for people to work within that basically still kept an eye on things like the flow of work coming into the team, the flow of work going out of the team. A simple example of how we did that was prior to the pandemic, we were putting stats up on a board every day, and the team would take responsibility for doing that, so that they had ownership of the work that was coming into the team. We could see how much was being dealt with, and then we could see what the output was, so that again, as managers, we could keep an eye on if there were any pinch points that we needed to get involved with, but equally that the team could see the results of what they were doing and the work that they were ploughing on through. So a quick example of how we changed that was we made it virtual. We made a virtual works board, and using technology such as Teams, what we did is every morning we would have a quick, and we still do actually, we have a quick catch up with the team where we together as a group put the figures on the board in terms of what new work has come into the team, be that adverts, appointments, pre-employment checks, people needing to be set up on SAP. And then what we do at the end of the day is have a very quick catch up where we put all the figures of what we've achieved that day on the board. And it sounds really simple, doesn't it? It's just an Excel spreadsheet. It's not complicated. But what it did is it kept that culture of people wanting to understand what work was coming in. People were able to still show what work they'd done. And equally, we still had the ability to keep an eye on the flow of work in the team without having that sort of static board on the wall. We still were able to do that. So I don't think quite a lot of the changes were quite small, quite neat, in terms of just us flipping to a virtual setting. And then it's all about the people. So you've got, we had the technology, we quickly moved the rest of the processes online, and then it was just about making sure that we were looking after the people, and really that focused around communication, absolutely key. We probably overdid it to start with, in terms of talking, having team meetings far too often, but that was more done from the point of view of wanting to make sure that everyone was happy, comfortable with what they were doing, and that they had the support they needed. And then over time, what we've done is we've just relaxed that. So we still do have quick catch-ups in the morning and the afternoon, but now we've relaxed to having a big team meet once a week instead of sort of every day to check in on everyone. And what we're finding as well is that we're having to sort of flex with what the team needs, and what individual people need as well. So it's been a bit of a learning curve. We've made a few mistakes along the way, but we've learned from them. And the last key thing to say is that we've involved the team in all the decisions we've made. So they've had a say, they've been able to input into the way they want to work. I think that's another key aspect of why it's been relatively successful. Not that I've got anything to compare it against, because this is a one-off. Well, I hope it is anyway.
Yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's clear, and what you said at the beginning, it resonates. The whole, I remember with our team internally, we would have a lot of meetings because everyone was, it was almost a bit of an anchor, wasn't it, and a comfort blanket while we were all trying to find our feet. And as you say, we've all got used to it and realised we don't need a conversation every 12 minutes. But what obviously has enabled you to do is keep everyone engaged with the work. As you say, you've had that communication channel, and it's enabled you to manage remotely, which I think is still something I'm hearing more and more HR professionals talk about. Is how do you keep this dispersed workforce engaged with the task and performing? So it's credit to you, really.
Thank you.
So, Sophie, over to you. So, obviously, from an onboarding perspective, you had to make some big changes quite quickly during the pandemic. So, how did you change your approach to onboarding?
Do you know what? I think we're still changing. I think we're still having to adapt a little bit. I think the past year has taught us that we just have to have that sort of attitude to be able to flex and move things where needed. And quite quickly last year, as you can imagine, some of the sort of priority roles came up relatively quickly as soon as the pandemic hit. So we had real concerns around things like the care homes, making sure that they were recruiting safely, but also as speedily as possible. So really it came down to, I guess, two sort of areas. One, making sure that our hiring managers were comfortable with their recruitment and what onboarding looked like during that time. Naturally, lots of people having questions about how do you even recruit during a pandemic, and what does that look like for the hiring manager, what does it look like for the candidate. So we were really having to sort of have those conversations early on and outline some guidance for them. And that included things like just getting managers set up on how to do things like virtual interviews, and breaking down some of those barriers. And then from a candidate perspective, I mean, we saw real big changes in terms of application numbers across last year. So at the start of the year, things were pretty steady, and then when March and April hit, the application numbers and the jobs dropped considerably. They picked up very, very quickly at the end of May into June. So it's so much that we weren't really prepared for it. I think it's just been a case of really putting ourselves back in the candidate's shoes again. Which not that we weren't doing that before, but it gave us a real good opportunity to be listening to the market, understanding what it was that candidates were experiencing, what they were really needing from their recruitment experience when they were applying for jobs, and that's something that's still going on now. So whether that's things like as we've got a lot more virtual opportunities now, more hybrid roles, and I think it's more about just ensuring that things like our adverts are transparent. So when you're applying for a role, you know exactly what it is that you're applying for. Is that something you're going to be working from the office? Is it something you're going to be working from a care home? Can you work from Liverpool? I mean, I'm currently working from Nantwich. Yeah. So I think it's opened up a whole lot of options for people, which is fantastic. We're always going to have roles that are based in Surrey, but there's a big chunk of that can sort of flex now. So in terms of how that impacts onboarding, really, it's about making sure that sort of golden thread of the transparency is sort of evident throughout the process, I think. So transparent adverts, making sure that at interview, questions are are sort of encouraged, and conversations are had around what flexible working potentially looks like, or what it looks like to work at Surrey now, because it is a very different view to what it was previously. And then from then on, really ensuring that the induction processes are nice and stable, and that candidates have a real good start to their career with us. So we introduced a handbook last year that we attached onto our adverts, and that sort of highlights some of the more cultural aspects of what happens at the council. So things like staff network groups, and we're about to change it now to add in things like our greener future strategy. So there's a lot of work happening in that space. So I think it's just making sure that the transparency is there, not only with the process and how you apply, but also what it looks like to work at Surrey, and making sure that that's really, really engaging for our marketing.
Definitely, and it seems to be the case at the moment. It's one thing I've picked up in general across last year is it's okay to provide as much information as possible now, isn't it? So as you say, the more that people have the option whether they choose to engage with it or look at it or whatever, but it seems in every part of a talent acquisition process now, you try to provide the potential candidates with as much detailed information about the job, the organisation, what else you do apart from what you're known for doing. And I really like that. I'd like to devour that content. I think it's a great opportunity for candidates who are interested in your organisation. Yeah,
definitely. And it's challenging because we've got, a lot of different roles within different sectors with lots of different demographics. And sometimes it's about how you sort of push that information out to the masses, but then ensure that it's targeted at the same way. So that's been an interesting lesson for us all, just to make sure that we're not making sure that we're inclusive of who we're sending it out to, but making sure that it's engaging to everyone as well at the same time. So it's still an ongoing journey, but one that I feel like we've so far has taught us quite a lot.
Brilliant. So Tom, this next question, I suppose, really was almost the basis for why we decided to do this podcast. Is that you said you guys were thinking about your talent acquisition process and improving it anyway before COVID happened, and you took the bold step of just actually let's crack on with this and get it done, and not try to be affected too much by what was going on in the wider world. So, talk to me, tell us a little bit more about your team's commitment to that continuous improvement throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, do you know what, Simon? I have to pick you up on that. It was the team that were bold, to
really?
Be honest with you. Yeah, excellent. It was. I mean, and I need to give them credit, because when COVID first hit, I suppose there was that initial concern as a leader of the team, as managers, about would we be in a position with a different structure to be able to deliver what we'd been delivering before. How would we manage that? How would we manage doing everything virtually? How is the organisation going to interview people? How are we going to bring people into the organisation in this virtual world? And I suppose to a degree there was we were slightly nervous about whether or not we'd have to put things on hold until obviously we had some kind of idea as to where this was going to end up. And I think, once we were able to get those structures in place, make sure we had the right communication levels, make sure that the team were able to do what their primary responsibility is, which is obviously the administration side of associate recruitment. Although I think it's arguable now that it's not our primary responsibility now must include things like employer branding and social media and marketing, etc. But once we had that in place and we were comfortable that everyone had what they were needed, it was the team who started actually picking up and running with projects and started continuing to identify areas for improvement. And Sophie was involved with one of our colleagues, Dan Scudamore, who's our social media and marketing guru, and they persevered through the COVID pandemic with completely redesigning and refreshing our website, which was, to be honest, long overdue. The fact that they were able to do that through the pandemic, it might have been slightly more difficult than if they'd been in the office. Nods from Sophie, but the reality was that they were still able to pull on the resource needed from our web ops ops team. They were still able to interact with our services and directorates to get the information they needed, and they were still able to work collaboratively, even if it was in a sort of digital way. And the result was that they released a fantastic website just after Christmas this year, and I would implore you to go and have a look at it, because it really is wonderful, and does a lot to pull together what this organisation is now about and where we want to be in the future. So I think to a degree culture helps keep that drive for continuous improvement. I mean, it's a hot topic of conversation for us at most of our meetings all week. Very recently, within the last couple of weeks, our colleague John Smallbones, who manages our admin function in terms of appointments through to pushing people onto our payroll system, was just able to release with the team a contract robot. So a robot that actually picks up all of the appointments that come through to his team and automatically generates the contracts for them, which then can be pinged out, creating a huge efficiency within his team in terms of being able to get through a lot of contract generation. I mean, just to give you an idea, reducing contract generation down from 45 minutes down to 2-3 minutes. So when you're processing the kind of volumes we are, that makes a significant difference, and therefore that resource can then be that's freed up through doing that can then be moved into a different area, such as pre-employment chasing. So again, ultimately, our customers get a better service from us. So I mean, those are just a couple of examples of things that have been able to continue. We've still been able to work on. Our apprentice Lucy Bonfield, who I should give a shout out to as well, who joined us in the pandemic, and therefore has been onboarded completely virtually. In fact, we're actually meeting her this evening for a drink, but that's another story. For
the first time. Superb.
For the first time, yeah, as a group of 6, we're meeting up, but she's been onboarded into the team. She's done a fantastic job, and even she is delivering continuous improvement through some of the work that she is doing as well. It's incredibly impressive, and I think we had two options. We could have taken our foot off the gas and said, you know what, we'll just we'll sit back, we'll just do the pure BAU side of things, we won't bother trying to drive that, but we didn't. We decided that no, we wanted to carry on. After a few months, it was pretty beyond reasonable doubt that this situation was going to carry on for a while. So we might as well just go for it and see what we can do. And I'm very proud of what the team have achieved in the last 18 months. I really am. And also, I hope that the individuals in the team who've taken charge of delivering some of those projects are equally proud of themselves as well. And I think hopefully we've shown that it can be done. And to be honest with you, I won't go into all of the gory details, but we've got a list of things that we want to look at in the future now. So it's kind of getting one thing over the line and going right next. What next needs to be tweaked and changed, and recruitment's so fluid that we can never stand still in terms of thinking we've done everything, and that would just be naive to ever be in a position and think that.
No, you're right, and you've obviously achieved a lot, and as you say, kept the kind of culture of continuous improvement moving, and it's great that your team are sort of pushing you in that space. I think that's fantastic to see, and you're right. I mean, where you're based, it's a very competitive market. I mean, I don't do tons of work in the public sector. I know we discussed that, Tom, when we first met. It feels like a long time ago, and but it was very clear that you had, an employer brand that does, in a way, compete with some of these really well-known blue chip organisations that I work with, and that's fantastic to see, because it can be very hard for someone like me to try and attract people to an organisation sometimes, and that really wasn't the case with yourselves. You had a good brand. Clearly the website as it developed gave people a really good feel for what you're doing at Surrey, and that's a credit to you all, really, as a team. So Sophie, the agile working agenda, how have you kind of pushed that at Surrey County Council over the last few months?
I think as it's changed, we've had to just really adapt to it. So last year, I mean, the first half of last year, I think we weren't necessarily pushing it because we didn't really know what it looked like. So it's taken, the council weren't ready to sort of just jump in and change things until, it's been a constant change in picture. So we've had to just sort of wait back a little bit and see, where it's sort of heading. But I think what's become really, really clear is as we've gone on and working sort of more in these hybrid positions, or working from home has really worked for the council in a number of fronts and across different roles. So it's still a discussion that's being had at the moment, but we're really proud recently to have been able to offer. We had some lawyer vacancies and team lawyer vacancies that we were sort of pushing out the message that you can work from wherever you want in the country. So we were sort of targeting, we were looking at where there was high attrition rates, and we were targeting like Newcastle and Liverpool and Birmingham. So for that was the first time we've ever actually proactively gone there and targeted somewhere that wasn't really like Surrey or the surrounding areas. And some of the social media messages more recently have been around how we've been working from home, really honest stories that whether that's working with your cat next to you or what the sort of honest approach around what it's been like with parents working with kids in the background. We've been very lucky. We've got a number of parents in our team who've done fantastic over the past year, and we've really enjoyed them sort of just running to the back. And we got in a one-to-one recently with one had a washing basket on the head running in the background. So it's but I think it really opens that, it breaks down barriers for people can just be their authentic selves. So that's the sort of message that we're trying to push at the moment. It's more around there's opportunities there for you to your work-life balance is really important to us as employers and as managers. So that's probably what we're pushing at the moment. And then longer term, there's a big piece of work around just what it's going to be like to work at, what it will look like to work at Surrey in the future. So Joanna Killian, our chief executive, is currently looking at the cultural landscape. We did a big piece of work on that when we were back in County Hall a few years ago, and we sort of did a bit of like a cultural audit, and there was lots of really good stuff that came out of that. So now it's about adapting it and making sure that it's relevant for these sort of hybrid positions, but then making sure that it's also inclusive of people who are working on the more frontline roles and who are out there in the community. So it's just making sure that balance is really key. So we're not selling ourselves as just purely hybrid employer, that we've got a number of roles that sort of fit into different areas. So but for us, I mean, it's like gold for us as a recruitment team, being able to sort of open up the talent pools and look more widely at people more nationally. It will allow us to have better communication and relationships soon with the likes of different universities, naturally for roles like social work and any sort of more qualified positions that sometimes can be quite challenging to recruit to. The fact that we can open that up to universities across the country and sort of get more targeted in if there's opportunities for hybrid positions, and that works really well for us. So still pushing and still learning as we go, but it's a real good step in the direction, and again puts us as an employer of choice back on the map, which is good.
And it's when you think back, I mean, just the fact that the tech tools make it so easy now to see, as you say, to target parts of the country where you can see movement and attrition in a particular area and go, actually, let's hire there now. Doesn't matter where we are. I think because I'm an old man, I find that amazing. If you know what I mean? It still seems such a leap, compared to 5 years ago, even when that just wasn't on the radar for most organisations, and here you are as an organisation, bringing that to life. So that's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's we've been using LinkedIn as much as we can recently to get as many sort of like talent insights as possible.
It's a great tool, isn't it? It's really
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's that's been a big part of the development for the team in the past year or so, is really looking at the market and understanding, rather than just sort of going and advising a hiring manager on what they need, looking first to see actually what does it look like out there, how do we sort of compare, and if there are areas in the country where we can target, can we offer more flexibility, and having those conversations first before just going out and sort of advertising for the sake of it. So it's it's been fascinating actually.
Excellent. Thank you. So Tom, obviously last year we've discussed was just a year of many challenges. One of the pieces of work I remember you telling me about that was in a way quite unique to yourselves as a client compared to a lot of the people that I work with was the NHS testing and the recruitment and the volunteer recruitment, which was something you and your team had to get involved in. Tell us a little bit more about that. I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think COVID brought about sort of some direct challenges in terms of the impact it had physically on people, but then obviously there was the and then there was the indirect impact as well. And I mean, the COVID testing was something that we were thrown into towards the latter part or the beginning, sorry, of this year, where it was something that we'd never had to do before. So we were asked to work with our colleagues in the NHS to set up a number of asymptomatic testing sites across the county, and we had a very, I think, aggressive timescale is the word to use. Yes, very, very aggressive. And suddenly we're in a position where one day you were suddenly working with colleagues in the NHS who maybe, well, I certainly had never dealt with before, trying to recruit for people that I'd never recruited for before. So it was quickly trying to get your head around the different types of people you needed, the roles and responsibilities, and working with our NHS colleagues to get that up and running as quickly as possible. My colleague Gemma Tarrant, who looks after our sort of temp resourcing arm, did a fantastic job of mobilising our temp recruitment provider and helping manage the process and organising and coordinating what at one point felt like a mountain to climb, especially given the timescales. But through working again together, through being committed, we were able to meet the deadlines that were put in front of us, and we managed to get that up and running as requested for the county, which was really, really pleasing. And I think it also showed as well what can be achieved when you've got the right people committed, and you've got a shared vision in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And there was a number of days where I was interviewing people, and again, you kind of you're learning on the job as you're interviewing them, because they're educating you on what, for example, a medical quality assessor does on site, and talking about things that to a degree went straight over my head. But I was glad one of my NHS colleagues was sitting in the other corner, nodding approvingly. So yeah, it's but like I said, I think that's one of the things that COVID has brought about to a degree, is that need to be incredibly flexible with regards to approach, willing to learn new things. I mean, Sophie's touched upon a lot there about the market and needing to stay abreast of like what's going on and the trends, etc., etc. And one other thing to add to what she was saying actually was the fact that although COVID is fantastic from an employer point of view of providing us more choice if we're willing to embrace agile working, equally it works on the flip side as well. Candidates have much more choice at their fingertips. And thus there is a greater need for us to be wrestling for that, wrestling for the top space as an employer of choice, wrestling to be, in their field of view when it comes to marketing and advertising. And that's bloody difficult, and it's ongoing. You can't take your foot off the pedal. And likewise, when we were doing the COVID test site recruitment, we were battling every other county and borough and everyone else who was trying to do exactly the same thing as well. So like I said, it's certainly been challenging, but it's also been rewarding to be able to accomplish what's been asked of us, and I think we've done well. I'm certainly proud of the team, and I think that we've done pretty much as we could have done during what the last 12 months have thrown at us.
Excellent. And as you say, it's just such a great thing to have achieved alongside your day jobs. It's a completely new project, something that's new to everyone. And I was delighted when you told me about that. I just thought, what a great achievement. Well, you must have felt very, gives you a good feeling when you can do something that benefits everyone and is something you've learnt a lot from.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the USPs of working at a county council is, or any non-for-profit organisation, is that it is everything we do is geared up towards delivering important services to residents, be that through COVID testing, direct support, be that through us finding backroom staff who support the frontline teams. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that the work we do has an impact on people's lives, and I'd like to think anyway, Sophie, I'd like that to think that's why we're here, that's why we do what we do, because it is to a degree that the satisfaction of being able to leave the office on a Friday and think that this week we made a difference. We were able to support the residents, etc., etc. And our aspirations is to continue improving and continuing delivering a better service. And that's why we love what we do.
Well said. Well said. So, just for the benefit of a lot of our audience, there's a real wide range of sectors. Put it that way. So, Sophie, to give us an idea of some of the volumes of new starters you've been processing over the last year, because I think that'll surprise a lot of the people in HR that I know.
Yeah, so I mean, generally, we tend to recruit between 2,500 to 3,000 people a year. And that, to be honest, that wasn't really that different last year in terms of the volume of recruitment, because we did have a bit of obviously a reaction to the pandemic in May and June, where it did quieten down a little bit. That then sped up towards the end of the year. So even though it was super busy, it sort of balanced itself out in terms of numbers. But what I've been really impressed to see actually is the council's response to just what has happened to the market in terms of hiring younger people. So now looking at hiring just over 40 kickstarters for the new government initiative. So those adverts are currently with our local job centres, and there's been a bigger push on things like apprenticeships. So what I've been pleased with actually is that those numbers, even though they've remained relatively steady in terms of the overall figure, actually they're adapting to what we're really needing as a council, but also helping support people who've been displaced because of COVID. So yeah, no, there's it'll be really interesting to see what the numbers look like this year as well, because recruitment has certainly picked up the past few months. I think
really.
Naturally hiring managers are getting more and more confident now about recruiting in this new world. It took some a bit of time. We had to sort of remember that when you're in recruitment, you're working in recruitment, it doesn't feel like it's that worrying or scary, because all we do is recruit all day. So but if you're a manager, maybe a social work team, or in I don't know, a communication team, or wherever you're sitting, if recruitment isn't your first priority of that day, when it comes to it, there's some, in this new virtual world, sometimes there's some barriers, or there's extra training needed. So yeah, it's been, the focus has been probably more so around looking at that and making sure that everyone was ready and feeling confident to recruit again. But yeah, I mean, it's still been a very busy year for us in terms of those numbers. And like Tom said before, we've had to adapt ourselves as a team as well. So trying to handle those whilst making sure that our team were okay, making sure that processes were up and running, and that everyone had the equipment they needed, was a real challenge probably mid-year. We've got ourselves, I think we're actually now in probably the best place that we've been in the last 18 months. I'd say, just in terms of like the speed that we're getting them through, there's still all the quality of the safety checks, making sure that we're actually recruiting the right people. And that's been a real big focus recently, making sure that we're hiring for values and attitude, and it isn't just a case about filling a job and then just closing it off, making sure that actually we're hiring for the future really. So yeah, big numbers, but yeah, we welcome them.
And you're staying on top of the process. That's the important thing.
Yeah,
doing it well. So final questions then, guys. What I wanted to do was to finish on a high, obviously, and maybe ask you to share some of your success stories, really. Now, I'm going to guide you towards certain ones, because there were pieces that particularly interested me. There's a LinkedIn accolade, I think. There obviously is the new site, which has been released last year, and I'll make sure the link to that's in the promotion we do for this podcast, so people can find you, obviously, and just employer branding in general. So the LinkedIn accolade, who wants to tell us about that?
Sophie, do you want to go? Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been working with LinkedIn really, really closely for the past. We've had an account for them for the past 3 or 4 years, but the last year especially, we've just been trying to, I guess, get the best out of it. So making sure that we were using every sort of angle and corner that we could do to maximise our potential with it, really. And then we were told last year that through like continuous social media messaging, CV searching, and just sort of our targeted approach, we'd become what they were. The way they put it was best in public sector at that point. So for me, I mean, honestly, I would never even sort of try to achieve that. We were just trying our best to to sort of brand ourselves as a strong employer, and to have that said back to us was one, a bit of a shock, a welcomed one, but it just sort of maybe stop and reflect and realise actually how far we'd come. And my colleague Dan Scudamore has been, he's really led in that area, and every single week the content that we've been putting out there improves. Every single week he goes away, he reflects on it, he comes back, he does some training on Photoshop or whatever it is that he's doing, and he looks to improve it, and he listens to the market, he sees what else is out there. And I think what we've noticed recently is that when you're on LinkedIn, you think about how you scroll on your feed, that the platform changes week by week, the algorithms are constantly changing. So we're having to always revisit the content we're putting out there, what colours we're using, sometimes down to the very finest details. And I think by doing that had really helped us sort of stand out. And so we wrote up an article in collaboration with LinkedIn, just talking about our journey, and how it had helped. There was particular examples, such as we built up a new learning disability and autism team within adult social care, and LinkedIn helped us hugely in terms of recruitment. So that they quickly actually filled all the vacancies within a few months. So yeah, it's been really exciting, and off the back of it, we've been approached by different councils and local authorities to come and have a conversation. So what I will caveat with is we're not perfect. We're on a journey ourselves. We're not sort of trying to say that we're the best and that's it. We need to constantly improve and constantly move with the market. But yeah, it was just a really nice opportunity to sort of stop and reflect and celebrate it.
Definitely, I think it's a real. I mean, from an external perspective, as I've said to you before, I work with a real wide range of clients, and what you guys are doing is up there. Do you know what I mean? With comparing with some really big global, well-known names who are creating, well known for creating that engagement. So I think it's important that you and your sector, which is sometimes can be dismissed in the wider HR market, is seen to be making the strides forward. So again, credit to you all, and good to see you using the technology so well. And staying with technology, I guess back to you, Tom, the careers site. So this was designed and delivered during 2020, and it is now available, and we'll plug it accordingly. But tell us a little bit about your feelings about it. What's improved from the old one, I suppose.
Well, I think firstly, I mean, it's been dusted off and freshened up and brought into the 21st century. I think it was a little sterile before. It was a little, to be honest with you, a little council. I think, Sophie, that was someone's feedback, wasn't it? That the biggest feedback we can give you is that it doesn't look like a council website, which was made us all smile. And to be honest with you as well, it's about it's for me, when I looked at it when it was finished, and the guys did a wonderful job. It was decluttered. To start with, get rid of all the noise in there, just declutter it, put what people want to see right at the forefront, searching what it's like to work at the council. Like I said, freshening up the whole look and feel of it, so it looked more 21st century. And to be honest with you, bringing out some more of our USPs to the forefront, agile working, the culture of the organisation. Sophie's touched upon the networks that have been set up over the last few years and pulling them more to the forefront so that people understand that we are committed to things like inclusivity. Are we perfect? No, by no stretch of the imagination. But do we want to be absolutely yes? Do we aspire to be yes? How can we kind of engage with individuals who want to help us on those journeys? And that's what I believe it's done. We've got a huge amount of footfall that comes through to the jobs pages. It's the second most visited page on the site, and it needs to be a champion for us. It needs to, we want people to hit that page and go, wow, wait a minute, I want to find out more about this. There's an organisation I want to work at. So the website is really one of our biggest selling points, if you like, or one of the things that's most important to our team to keep up to date, to keep fresh and to keep on reviewing. And it was, like I said, it was long overdue, a bit of an overhaul. But I think the hope now, I say think, it's not think, what we're going to do now is it's going to be maintained on an ongoing basis, so that we rather than having to do a big overhaul every 5-6 years, we're just going to stay on top of it this time and make sure that it's kept up to date on an ongoing basis. So far so good. The team have had a lot of positive feedback about it. And I think it's now seen. What was quite interesting is that sometimes it can be difficult or tricky to engage with people to get the content we need to be able to share on it. As soon as people started seeing what was being built, they were racing over to us to try and get their information in it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, sometimes that's what we need to do. We need to sort of say, well, wait a minute, we're building this. Do you want to come and be a part of it, sort of thing? What's nice is that now we've got somewhere we can be really proud of as a team to point candidates to, and we can be confident that when candidates come to the job site, they can get the information that they need, and that it's presented in a way which is nice and easy for them to navigate. It's palatable, and they can find their way around easily.
Excellent. And lastly, I suppose to either of you, the employer branding in general, you've clearly done an awful lot of work and engaged a lot of stakeholders with your organisation to improve that, I would say, and stand alongside some very popular brands in the market to attract people to the organisation. Are there any particular pieces within employer branding we haven't spoken about in terms of the career site and your LinkedIn work that you're particularly proud of, really?
I think one of the things that I've noticed over the last few months is how it has really started to snowball. And I think towards, if we were to go back 12-18 months, it was very much the recruitment team pushing information through. It was the recruitment manager. It was me. It was Sophie who were writing, commenting on things, engaging. What we've started to now really see when I look into the LinkedIn account is the fact that the engagement now, in terms of other people in the organisation starting to share jobs, starting to post, starting to comment, we're getting much more engagement now from people. So there's much more comments, people tagging each other. So it feels at the moment that we've kind of got over the hill, if you like, in terms of it starting to roll and build up pace. And I mean, we are very fortunate at Surrey in the sense that we've got a very, very strong senior leadership team who are more than willing to get stuck in and lead by example with some of this stuff. And I have no doubt that that's played a huge part as well, because when people see the chief exec, the executive directors posting, liking, commenting on things, it kind of reinforces the fact that this is what we should be doing, and we need to do more of it. And equally, we've been able to secure some very senior hires through our own resources, which really helps as well, and kind of evidences the fact that this stuff works. Most professionals now are on LinkedIn, and is there any reason why we shouldn't be going and tapping them on our shoulders ourselves, as opposed, Simon, I'm sorry, but in terms of using people like yourself, although there will always be a place for people like yourself. But I think that that's the two things combined. A really active recruitment team who are pushing it, who are leading the way, championing it, but equally then coupling that together with a senior management team who are more than happy to get stuck in and involved and share and like things and comment is really helpful to get that momentum. It's quite tricky to do without that, but I think that's one of the reflections I've and the journey I've seen on social media and the likes.
Definitely. And you, in all honesty, if what you'd created wasn't good, your chief exec wouldn't be doing what they're doing. At the end of the day, do you know what I mean? They wouldn't be wanting to associate themselves with it, and so on. So there's that validation there, and there's the role modelling for the rest of the organisation.
Might be a very different conversation if they didn't like what we were doing.
Exactly.
I think what I'm really proud of as well is that it's cost effective. So we could have gone out to like creative agencies and asked for social media campaigns and for them to sort of draft up our work and a lot of companies do that, and that's fine. But for us, in two senses, it's really helpful. One, it's of course it's public sector money, so it's important that we are always cost effective with what we're doing, and actually having that talent in house not only really helps with that manner and making sure that we we're being mindful of what our advertising spend is, but also it's fantastic for the team to be able to see them really, really develop in the past year and their confidence with like being brave and curious and trying new ways of putting out social media. That there's a lot more around videos now, so we're sort of entering into that space. So it's I mean, I'm really that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of, actually, is the fact that that's all been done through the skill set of the team, and them encouraging each other and supporting each other, and yeah, getting to that place where we're now just being a bit braver and not sort of holding back with it. I think sometimes that's what employer branding is about, is, you know, you sometimes, like the cheeky little comments on LinkedIn, you know, when we're responding to candidates, and just being a bit human.
Completely.
Not, yeah, not, you know, it's sometimes very easy to sort of fall under the, you know, the not corporate pressure, but to sort of want to fit in with that. And it's important that, of course, we're professional, and that we're, you know, that we're, you know, we're still a local authority, so we have to be mindful of that. But it's nice to sort of engage with candidates and just be ourselves and be humans. Yeah.
Oh, completely. The voice of the organisation is something a lot of places are talking about now, aren't they? Whether that's internal to the employees, or as you're talking, externally to the market. And you're right, there is a time and a place for corporate speak and that kind of drier angle, I suppose. But it's important to show the personalities of the people working the business. And again, I think you guys are doing that well. So, hey, look, you've given me a lot of time. Thank you so much. It's been really lovely to catch up with you both again, and hear a little bit about what you've achieved over the coming 12 months. When we put this out, it'll go out on LinkedIn. Obviously, you guys are welcome to a copy too for your own internal and external uses, but we'll plug the website so people can see what you're talking about and just see how far you've come. But thanks, Sophie. Thanks, Tom. It's been lovely to talk to you, and look forward to working with you again in the future.
Cool. Thanks, Simon.
Cheers. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening or watching Series 2, Episode 4. And above all, thanks to Tom and Sophie from the recruitment team at Surrey County Council for giving up their time and sharing some of their successes with me today. All previous Talk HR UK episodes are available on many platforms. There's an Alexander Lloyd YouTube channel. There's the Apple Podcast channel, Spotify, Google Podcasts, you name it, it's out there. So please do give us a positive review today if you liked this podcast. Please like it, please share it, and obviously subscribe on whatever platform you listen to receive next week's without any further ado. So yeah, thanks for listening, basically. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Simon Geere from the Alexander Lloyd HR Recruitment team, and we'll tune in next week where episode 5 will be happening. So have a great week, people, and I'll speak to you soon. Many thanks.